First of all, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is David Chappelle. I'm the Director of Development at Pursue Scholars, who's hosting the event. We are a Christian organization that holistically supports emerging urban leaders in higher education, preparing them to have leadership roles back here in Chicago when they return from college. So we put this town hall together today because even though we're all facing COVID-19 individually, we put this town hall together today because even though we are all facing COVID-19 individually, Chicagoans understand that we are stronger together. So gathering some of the region's top organizations that serve emerging leaders, we are going to discuss how this crisis is impacting each of our organizations. This is a way for us to kind of collaborate and put our heads together and think about how we can better serve our clients and the people of Chicago. So I want to have the panelists all introduce themselves. So what I want the panelists to do is to say say their name, their organization, their role, and then what inspired you to be here today. Because honestly, like as I presented this to all of you, like you didn't have to accept. So what inspired you to want to come and speak on behalf of your clients and on behalf of Chicago? So first up, I'm going to have Adrian. Adrian, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Adrian Segura. I'm the Deputy Chief of Family and Community Engagement with Chicago Public Schools. What inspired me to be here today? So a series of things, but I think one of the things is I do engagement work because I love connecting with people and love to hear their thoughts of what's going on and really just build community. And so what inspired me to be here today is kind of expanding that reach and expanding that community.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Michelle. Michelle, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Michelle with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Chicago. I'm a program coordinator there for the site-based side of the organization. Why I'm here today, I guess it's because when talking to the students and talking to the families, they also don't really know what's going to happen. And so I guess having this virtual panel and talking with everyone maybe will give everyone and my families and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Chicago a little better understanding of where everyone's at, and kind of more comforting to know that we're all kind of like working through the same things. Thank
you, Michelle. Chase, could you go next, please?
Absolutely. How's everybody doing today? Chase Larkin from UPenn. I'm a youth development coach. What brought me here today is I worked with young people for the last 10 years. It's my passion, is what I love to do. And I wanted to learn and also share better ideas of how to stay connected and support the young people in our communities.
Thank you very much, Chase. Tamara, could you go next, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Tamara Hoff-Pope, and I'm the Managing Director of College Success at Chicago Scholars. And I am here because I believe that all of our organizations are stronger together. And when we are in collaboration with each other, thinking through ways to best support all of the scholars that we serve, I think that's where we make the strongest impact. So I'm glad and fortunate that you invited me to participate, David, and glad to be here with my other fellow panelists to see how we can best collaborate and support our scholars.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Lastly, but not lastly, Solomon from Pursue Scholars, could you please speak up what brought you here and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, David. Yes, my name is Solomon Dixon. I am the Act 6 site director here. I help facilitate a full tuition, full need scholarship with our partner institutions and colleges in the region for Chicago students. And so it's an opportunity for students to be developed and then with a college education, then come back to their community to see it transformed. And so I'm honored to serve in that capacity. I'm also honored to be here with the panelists. The reason why I'm here is honestly just to be encouraged, to be inspired with hope, to see, in my opinion, these essential workers here continuing to do the work with the youth of this city, and just honored and blessed to be a part of that and to hear the stories of perseverance and resilience that these panelists have to share with us today. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here today. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank all of you for coming. I'm really excited about what we can come together and brainstorm about ways we can support our young people during this time. And if you have any questions, all chat functioning is going to the administrator, who's part of our team. So if you have any questions that come up during the panel discussion, like send it to the chat, and then at the very end, whatever we have time for, we will ask a few of the questions that she decides we should be asking to our panelists at the end. However much time we have left until 1:30. So this is the round. We have 2 different rounds of questioning. Each of our panelists gets 2 questions. We have 1 round that goes to everybody. We have a second round that goes to everybody again. Let's just get started. So my first question is to Adrian from Chicago Public Schools. Leadership is built both inside and outside of the classroom for most high school students. What strategies are Chicago Public Schools using to continue to nourish the growth of academic leaders and student athletes?
Hey, David. Yeah, we find ourselves in unprecedented times right now. So first, just to those who are parents of 8th graders, of 12th graders, or of student athletes, like, my heart really does. As a former student athlete myself, like, this is a big time for a lot of our youth, and, especially our seniors who were really counting on playing that last game. So my heart really does go out to our student athletes. Obviously, the governor canceled all spring IHSA sporting events. And so a lot of our students are taking it differently. I know I've spoken to a few parents of athletes. I've spoken to a lot of parents who are wondering, what are we going to do for graduation? How are we going to celebrate the kids? And so internally, we're having a lot of these discussions, and we're talking to principals, we're talking to teachers, we're talking to partners about how we can ensure that the class of 2020 feels celebrated. And then on how we're supporting academics, we are in our 2nd week now, remote learning. Our strategy is really, we've got a district level support of what that looks like, but a bulk of the individualized kind of supports are happening at the local school level. So Chicago is a choice district, meaning that we don't have a blanketed approach for education across the board. And so a lot of school leaders know their school communities best. And so we've been working with principals for the last month to help them in working with their teachers to design remote learning content specifically catered to their school community. We have been working with our Office of Diverse Learner Supports to make sure that we're offering differentiated models for our diverse learners. And our post-secondary team has been working to define what our Learn, Plan, Succeed strategy is going to look like for our high school juniors and our seniors.
Now, Adrian, have you heard about anything about colleges maybe restructuring how they're going to be accepting their high school students, as far as like having access to ACT, SAT testing, especially as it goes in the next year, because they say COVID may come back in the fall? Yeah. Like, what adjustments have you seen them make?
So colleges, a few of them have already gotten ahead of it, and I'm happy to send you some of the links.
Yes, yes.
But a lot of colleges have already kind of stepped up and said that they're not gonna, that they're waiving ACT and they're waiving SATs for admissions for the class of 2021. I know on our end, obviously, we're planning for testing in the fall. And so, to your point, I think a lot of it, there's just a lot of unknowns. We're in unprecedented times. I like to think there are people that are way smarter than me that are helping kind of guide the strategy.
Yeah.
And so, more to come on that front.
Do any of the panelists have any questions about Adrian's answer or the question itself? Okay. So yeah, thank you very much, Adrian. It's definitely heart-wrenching to know like what not just the student athletes, but the students themselves are going through with the difficulties of not being able to walk for graduation. It's a struggle for the parents and for the students. So definitely. Second question goes to Tamara from Chicago Scholars. College students faced a daunting disruption to their lives in the last month. What steps were taken to instill in them the confidence to not only lead their academic peers, but to show confidence in their own decisions?
Sure. So as soon as we accept our scholars into our program as second semester juniors in high school, we immediately begin cultivating their leadership development skills. So in all of our programs and interactions with our scholars, we embed our 6 core values of We dream big, we model the way, we care for each other, we embrace our differences, we show up, and we keep our word. So with the programming that we've done for our scholars, they have the opportunity to engage with us as staff and then also with each other as peers to demonstrate what these values actually mean to them. So once they graduate from high school, we expect them to take those same values with them that they've learned to the college success phase of the program, which is a phase that I manage. So our college success team is in frequent contact with the scholars via all forms of communication. So we have in-person meetings with them, phone calls, texts, emails, we send out newsletters, etc., where we get the chance to check in with them and make sure that they're doing well on their respective campuses. So as you can imagine, COVID-19 was a huge disruption for them. And while many of them did decide to shelter in place on their campuses, the vast majority of them decided to come home, or they had to come home because they were dislocated. So as we've been checking in with them, we've asked them how they've been activating those leadership skills during this crisis. And many of them have definitely shown agency and have been advocating for themselves and their peers. We had one scholar share with us that he helped his peers move out of the dorm. So something as simple as that. We had another scholar share with us that she contacted her school about a partial refund for tuition and fees and room and board. She also contacted her landlord and different housing agencies in the city. She is here in Chicago, to work out a plan to figure out how she was going to pay for her rent and utilities. And of course, scholars have been in contact with us for emergency assistance, which we provide through a grant that we have where we provide emergency funds for our scholars. So the scholars that we've been in contact with pretty much are all determined to make sure they can finish the semester strong and get back to their respective campuses. And many of them are not planning on transferring. And so I definitely think this is a strong display of our scholars, of their leadership development, and then also of them making good decisions.
So making that lasting impact from junior year all the way through college is an essential part of what makes Chicago Scholars so effective. How has your recruitment and your interviewing and things like that, how has that whole process been impacted? I know it's not your department, but like what's been going on with Chicago Scholars with that?
Yeah, sure. So that is our college access team. My colleague, Derek Fleming Jr., runs that work. And we've actually been able to successfully pivot. It's been a really exciting time of innovation at Chicago Scholars. We've had to completely transfer that to a virtual process now. So we did virtual interviewing of students. We reviewed all of the information virtually, and we're going to have a virtual acceptance for them. And so while we typically do those things in person, it's actually been a great time of innovation for us, where we've been able to pivot rather quickly and still function and make sure that we're able to accept and welcome and celebrate our incoming class of scholars. And so we're actually in the process of doing that now. We just went through all of the interviews and we're thick in the selection process. So we plan on wrapping that up in short order here and then making those announcements for our scholars. So it's a very exciting time for us as we get ready to welcome in our new incoming scholars.
Excellent, excellent. Does any of the panelists have any follow-up questioning for Tamara about anything she said or the question itself? Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you, Tamara. So it's interesting because I didn't plan this, but that question definitely leads exactly into the question for Solomon, who works for Pursuit Scholars. So Solomon, to develop leadership, you must model it. How does your support for your scholars exemplify and model crisis leadership tactics?
Yeah, first thing I want to say is, wow, just for Tamara and doing a similar work to us, just very encouraged by how you all have been able to pivot and adapt. So encouraging to see Chicago Scholars do that. One of the things I was contemplating is, thinking about this question is that we wanted to show in our support that crisis actually catalyzes opportunities to lead tenaciously and sacrificially. And so through this support during this unprecedented time, we wanted to show our scholars that we're going to throttle up, not throttle down, because that's, definitely understandable that so many organizations have to do that, kind of reassess and step back and different things like that. Totally understandable. But we wanted to show that we were going to go even harder and support them in different ways. And so we've seen that in the decisive responses we've seen in you, David, and April, our program coordinator, reach out to students and collect their stories and give them an outlet to process this season and time, and so that our audience can know how our scholars are doing in ways that are helpful. I've seen our executive director, Kevin Gwynn, mobilize us to reach out to scholars, the 50 plus scholars that we support, with gift cards to make sure that they have what their needs met in regards to food and other things like that, in a small way, in a way that we can show support. I lead weekly college readiness training for our newly selected Act 6 cadre, 8 scholars going to Taylor University in the fall on full scholarships. We usually are planned to do in-person college readiness training, but then, like Tamara was talking, we've had to pivot to a virtual platform, and we've seen that across the Act 6 network in different parts of the country. And so trying to figure out how to do that best. But I've also seen just the scholars engage in that platform and be present and support one another. And so doing that, I hope, signals and postures toward the scholars a message of hope that, yeah, things are going the way that they are right now, but we're having college readiness training because we expect for you all to still go on to college in the fall and get that leadership training education to come back to your communities and see them transformed. And so I really hope that we've shown that crisis actually can be a catalyst to lead tenaciously and sacrificially. So.
And one of my stories, one of the stories we wrote based on one of our scholars, one of the themes was hope and flexibility. And like that was definitely a common theme with your answer, Solomon, is that at Pursue Scholars, we are being hopeful. We're instilling hope into our students, and we're being hopeful ourselves, and we're also being flexible to adjusting to this unique time, going virtual, doing the different kind of platforms available. So that's an excellent answer. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Solomon about this on the panel?
And could I just add to that, David?
Go ahead.
Our scholars have been blowing us away with the hope that they've been exemplifying, and us as a staff just being like, man, these young leaders are truly being prepared to do this sort of work long term throughout their lives as far as leading communities. And so just as we've tried to model leadership and hope for them, they have indeed done it for us. And so I'm extremely grateful to work with the scholars that we do.
Definitely. And I was just thinking about this, and I was thinking about putting this into the introduction, that some of our greatest leaders in the past, especially during the 20th century, came out of very stressful and very dramatic times, like World War II or World War I or the Civil Rights Movement. Like, we had so many great leaders come out of that moment. It's going to be no different from the young people who are going to come out through this crisis as well. And I feel like all of our organizations are promoting that this is as much as it is a hampering of expectations, it's also an opportunity that they can grasp onto. So there's definitely a theme of mentorship between the last 3 panelists. So it leads right into what's going on with Michelle over at Big Brother Big Sister. So as we all know, Big Brother Big Sister is one of the premier mentoring organizations in the country, in the world. So here's my question, Michelle. Your mentorship model is respected all around the world. Where have some of your organizational strategies come into play with continuing to support your students' stability and growth as community impact leaders during this time?
Set of challenges. Sorry, I was muted, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think you're muted, yeah.
We've all had a new set of challenges. The bigs, the littles, everyone at Big Brothers Big Sisters. But we've just been really working hard to get a hold of every big, the parents of the littles and the littles themselves, so that they know that we haven't forgotten about them, even though we haven't seen them face to face in quite some time. I'm checking in with students. I personally ask them how they're doing, how are things at home, do they have what they need to do their schoolwork, how's their schoolwork going, do they like it, do they not like it. I'm checking in with parents to make sure how they're doing. And then also just letting the littles know that their bigs haven't forgotten about them, they're thinking about them, and making sure that that they know that they're only a text or phone call away. So despite the social distancing, we're still really committed to, keeping that connection, that emotional connection, the social connection, because right now mentoring is more important than ever. The mentors are they could really be that lifeline of support that the littles need right now. So our staff has been definitely working through it, finding different ways, innovative ways to keep them together virtually. from like a fun interactive game to, finding ways and tools to manage the stress or maintaining that focus that they need, because this is a definitely completely different setting. We're also actually moving towards having those virtual sessions with our program. So, what we've been trying to do is kind of come up with new activities that'll still work towards their goals, that'll still have them, interacting with one another, and that'll still have them working towards that, building that relationship, that lifelong lasting relationship.
Excellent, excellent. So when it comes to mentoring, there's definitely a void right now. Not just from the bigs to the littles, but I mean, like the structure they had at school, from the teachers they had, their current teacher, the teachers they've had in other classrooms too. Especially high school students, you're going to like 5-6 different teachers every single week, and these people are most likely going to be some of your strongest mentors outside of your parents, given your situation. So I think big brother, big sister coming in and implementing a strategy to replace that void in their lives and continuing to make sure you nurture the bigs with the littles is so crucial during this time. And I definitely wish you guys the best, and I hope it all works out. I know my sister is a big, so I get to hear firsthand about the adjustments big brother, big sister is making. So it's very, very exciting. It's very exciting to see the innovation at your guys' organizations. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you.
So last question on round one is for Chase from UCAN. So and UCAN basically exemplifies what all the other 4 organizations do. They have their hands in everything in Chicago, as we all know. Everybody knows UCAN. Everybody knows the work they do. So definitely appreciate Chase you being on here, and I'm looking forward to learning more about what UCAN is doing during this time. So Chase, your youth clientele are from traditionally trauma-filled communities. Adjusting to this health crisis can be classified as nothing short of a community trauma. How has your support for your youth prepared them to handle the challenges of staying confident while providing leadership for their families and peers?
So UCAN is very big on having trauma-informed programming. So everything that we've been doing leading up to now has been trauma-informed. We do a lot of positive youth development things. I run a program, which is a leadership development workshop. It usually runs 5 Saturdays from 10 to 3, and we talk about 4 leadership cornerstones: achievement, intention, motivation, empowerment, and about 15 leadership principles that we believe are the core principles that you need to be successful and be a positive leader. A lot of the youth that I've been reaching out to, just like everyone else, virtually, Zoom calls, Marco Polos, and things of that nature, they have been referring back to some of those leadership qualities that we talked about like years ago with a lot of them, and really been trying to implement them in their own lives, motivating the people in their own households, setting themselves up with schedules so that they can stay motivated and set small goals to accomplish it and feel like they're being productive throughout the day during this pandemic. So yeah, we've been really doing a lot to help out the youth.
Now, what are some of your unique challenges with recruitment and even transitioning some of your kids to college? What has been the difficulty with bringing kids in and transitioning them out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's very difficult to do the recruiting process. We do a lot of paperwork. I really like to meet with the youth face to face and kind of introduce myself. That hasn't been able to happen. So again, that has to go virtually. We do work with a lot of traumatized youth in communities that lack resources, and it's very impoverished. So it's very hard to like send out paperwork and get things back because they may not have computers at the house, they may not have Wi-Fi connection, or even printers and things of that nature. And so that process has been very difficult. But what we have been doing is, for those who can get hard copies, we will drop them off as we do other things in the neighborhood, like dropping off food and things of that nature. We'll drop off paperwork, and you can actually sign the paperwork and just send us a picture of it instead of us having to go back and forth and picking it up. So we're trying to find different ways to keep youth engaged and take in more youth during this time, because we know, like you said, like mentoring is at a low right now and they really need it. So we're trying our best.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I definitely appreciate all the work UCAN does, like I said, and thank you for your answer, Chase. So we're gonna go to round two now. We're gonna wrap back around to Adrian of Chicago Public Schools. This is kind of a long question, so bear with me, everybody. Leaders come from all demographics and economic backgrounds. However, during the COVID-19 crisis, at-home learning is undoubtedly impacted by economic disparities in terms of access to computers and Wi-Fi, reliable workspaces for students, and even familial responsibilities while spending extra time at home. What is CPS doing, and what systems are being developed to address this concern both in the present and into the future if a crisis were to happen again?
It's a question above my pay grade. I'm kidding. You know, I'm really grateful actually for our leadership during this time. I think that I've learned a lot in just observing Dr. Jackson and others navigate our current situation. And I think no one would have anticipated what we're in, and everyone's learning as we go. That being said, you've got a series of different questions within your question, and so I'll try to address it. Number one, on like the technology divide, when CPS is not going to be able to close the divide overnight. However, we are fully committed to ensuring that first things first, like we had devices at schools that were that principals identified families that didn't have access to device, or for example, there are some families that have multiple students in a CPS school. You know that if we're asking people to be available remote, having just one laptop for a family of 5 is going to make things difficult. So we prioritized need principals work with their counselors, with their teachers, to generate what that first wave of priority access was going to be. We've got a shipment of devices that are on their way into the city right now. CPS is a large district, but just like us, there are other large districts that serve population similar to ours that are trying to do the exact same thing. So everyone's trying to order Chromebooks, everyone's trying to order iPads, everyone's trying to order these devices to get them in the hands of youth as fast as possible. So a lot of that stuff was on back order. And so our IT department, I think, did a fantastic job at negotiating with our vendors and prioritizing devices to get shipped to schools. And then once they're in our schools, then it's like the logistics, right? How do you get the devices arrived? How do you get it in the hands of students in an expedited way, but that's also prioritizes safety. So we're working through all of those things right now. I will tell you, to date, we've distributed over 55,000 devices to students, and we've got every day we've got another wave of devices that get distributed out. So that's one. Two, I don't know if you all saw, but we had earlier this week students that are in temporary living situations. They all received Wi-Fi packs so that they can have access to the internet. They've also received devices just to make sure that they can be plugged in. We know how important it is now more than ever to have the ability to connect to your counselors, to your teachers, to your classmates. And so a big priority of ours was to help those students in temporary living situations get access to devices so that they can be connected. A few folks have also asked, how can we expand the free Wi-Fi for other families? And we're working with our city and our state officials to help think about that. Right now, the Illinois Tech serves as kind of like a state-sponsored Wi-Fi spot. We're trying to see how can we get more of those access points into the city, but that's not a CPS. While we certainly want to have a seat at the table and help be thought partners and how we can solve for this, we also recognize that city-sponsored Wi-Fi is out of the locus of our control. And so what we are being thoughtful with our approach on that front. And we're also leaning on partners. I know Austin Coming Together on the West Side has been doing a lot of work to help be a fiscal sponsor for families that don't have access to the internet. We've talked to Comcast and AT&T to extend their services. AT&T has the $10 a month sponsored internet. Xfinity's done the same, but at the same time, like that also comes with challenges, right? Like part of what my department does is help communicate these services to families. But then we start to we also serve as a conduit to provide feedback to district leadership. For example, we've gotten a lot of feedback on the Xfinity $10 a month Wi-Fi, like the first 2 free months, but they're asking people to sign up for a year, and they're asking people to go through credit checks. And so a lot of families say that that's an additional barrier of entry for them to even access these resources. So, we're working through those things now. We're holding our partners and our vendors accountable to create solutions that work for our families during this time. And so, I think the one thing that COVID has done, inequities already existed in our city, and like societal inequities, access to healthcare, access to food, access to technology. These things already existed. It's just exacerbated that and put them front and center. And our infrastructure as a city, as a state, unfortunately isn't designed to meet those needs in an expedited way. And so from our end, like we're doing everything that we can to prioritize distributing our resources in a way that's equitable. When this whole thing started, every single CPS school served as a meal site. We've since scaled that back. So right now there are over 270 meal sites that serve as distribution sites for people to come pick up remote learning packets for those that don't have access to internet or technology. We're still offering remote learning packets via paper copy that families can pick up at any CPS food distribution site. And so we're trying to, cover our bases here and make sure if you don't have access to technology, you can still come and you can pick up a remote learning packet. And much like what UCAN said, teachers are being creative, right? Take a picture of the assignment, send it to us, or their schools are being creative with how they can keep track of assignments that are done.
Oh, excellent. So one thing that I've been concerned about with CPS in all school districts is that state governments are going to be dramatically underfunded. And as legislatures get together to start to draft up budgets for the next year, there's going to be some severe budget cuts for state-run and city-run organizations like school districts, like police officers, like firefighters. Is that a concern? Because what I'm hearing from you is like, as great as these adjustments are for CPS, it sounds like it's costing a lot of money. So where, like, as you have to invest more into providing the technology, like, are you fearful of having the funds to continue to do that if COVID runs into some additional constraints, in the fall?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't know how many on the panel or on the group saw this week's CPS board meeting, but it is absolutely top of mind for us to be good fiscal stewards during this time, and like while still providing the resources that are needed to our students, to our staff, to do remote learning well. We don't know what the financial implications of this, pandemic are going to be. I've looked at a few different models at, 3 months out. What does 3 months look like? What does 6 months look like? What does 9 months look like? And you start to have really scary scenarios that pan out. I was looking at research from the 2008 financial crisis that hit, and I was still too young to even know what was going on at that time. But if history serves as a indicator here, what we saw was an additional influx in students attending public schools, because if there are financial, like if people are being fiscally conservative and there's a financial impact that's reverberated across different industries, families are going to pull their kids out of private school and they're going to place them in public schools. And so there was an influx of students in CPS to the tune of like 25,000 students that re-entered the district. And so, to your point, less money, more kids, like, and this pandemic is going to change everything about the industry. And yeah, I even thinking about like things like classroom size and how many, like what does, like right now we've got buildings that are underutilized. Are they actually going to be underutilized? How do we take utilization into account? And what does that mean for finances? And what does that mean for, in teacher to student ratio? Like all of these things, I think are like, I don't have the answer for them. I know they're like, I'm at the table. There are other really smart people at the table that are thinking about like, what does life post-COVID look like? And then what does it look like knowing what we're hearing from, what we're seeing in other countries, but also what we're hearing from our state, knowing that there will likely be another wave in the fall, early winter. Like, how are we adjusting our infrastructure to solve for that?
Yeah, these are extremely complicated problems, and I definitely appreciate that you're on the team working through them. So we're all going to be prayer and keeping our fingers crossed that CPS has puts the structures in place to make sure our kids are provided for sure. So next question, this goes to Michelle. This is about Big Brother, Big Sister. So your bigs have an opportunity to make a tremendous impact on your littles during this time of crisis by continuing their mentoring and emotional support. And you may have already kind of answered some of this, but if you feel the need to kind of expound upon anything, let me know. What techniques are some of the bigs, this is specific for the bigs, what techniques are some of the bigs using to continue to develop a strong connection with their littles while building their capacity for leadership at home and with their peers? So I know you briefly spoke about like the online interaction, but like what are some of the specific strategies you're teaching your kids to do or your bigs to do to interact with the littles?
Yeah, so some of my bigs are having just like those weekly check-ins via text, maybe just even sending encouraging words. Some are just having the general check-in, just making sure that their littles are doing okay week to week. Others are having video chats. I mean, I had a big celebrate her little's 18th birthday. And even though it probably wasn't in the little's plans to stay home and video chat on her big 18th birthday, I'm sure she felt really nice and felt good to know that her big was thinking about her and remembered her birthday and still reached out during this time. Some are just playing, it's as simple as just playing virtual Uno. Because it brings them back to our in-person sessions when we used to have free time. That was their go-to thing. That was their thing that made them have their first connection from day one. So some are just turning to, something as simple as just playing Uno virtually. Others are finding more creative ways to connect with one another. Some of the bigs are picking up the same book that their little is reading and having these virtual book clubs. Some bigs are just giving advice, how are you, what's your workspace looking like? This is my workspace, like this is what helps me. I stick to my routine. I have coffee in the morning, that helps me maintain focus. Others are just, exchanging cooking recipes with their littles. So I know that some of my littles were really interested and, exploring culinary arts. So they're exchanging recipes and of course, the photos of their finished product, because if you didn't take a photo, it didn't happen. So that's been, just like the positive side of things.
Excellent. So like that is fascinating. I was listening to your answer, like listening to all the dynamic ways that your bigs are interacting with your littles. Like I was literally taking mental notes about like how we could do those things that pursue scholars, and that's what this whole purpose was for us to get together to share our ideas and how we are uniquely addressing the divide that COVID has caused on our lives. So that's an excellent answer. Thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate that. Just a reminder, I think you guys got a chat reminder too. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and submit them to the chat feature. That'll go to our administrator, April, and she will be sending those to me. So as we get closer to wrapping up the question part, or the panel section, we'll get into the Q&A after that, and we'll do a Q&A until we run out of questions to ask. So up until about 1:20, 1:25. So thank you very much to you all for continuing to be here. Let's move on to Chase. Chase's second question. Chase works for UCAN once again, and I'm going to go ahead with the question. So Social distancing is undoubtedly impacting UCAN's ability to provide intimate therapeutic support during this time. What resources and platforms are you utilizing to limit the lapse in direct leadership development for high school students, especially high school students in leadership roles on their high school campuses? So this is kind of a, like I said, the same thing with Michelle, same thing with all these secondary questions. You guys have answered so in depth for the first question. If anything overlaps, you don't have to repeat it, but just like what resources and platforms are you using in case any other organizations want to utilize those same things? And how are you specifically addressing the leadership, like the lapse in leadership development that your high school leaders were having like on campus?
For the first part of that, all of them, every platform that we can get our hands on, we're using them. Zoom, we do our leadership program every single day, Monday through Friday for 4 weeks. That is done on Marco Polo. We are phone calls, texting. We are doing therapy through telehealth.
Wow.
Yeah, we are using whatever Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, however the youth, whatever technology, whatever app they have that we can communicate on, we are trying to utilize each and every one daily to stay connected with the youth. As far as the leadership aspect of it, what I'd like to talk to the youth about a lot is conflict resolution, how to appropriately gauge like your emotions and accurately be able to describe how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. We all know like being cooped up in the house with people you probably aren't used to seeing that many hours out of the day. And the tensions build and things start to bother you more and more. And if you don't have the ability to express exactly how you're feeling and why, and letting people know, hey, I need a second, I need a breather, I need a walk, or whatever it is, those little things can blow up into something major. So just talking to the youth about what's going on in their lives, what's bothering them, what are they looking forward to. We do daily affirmations, so I have them come up with 5 just affirmations that they can repeat to themselves every single morning, writing out their goals for the future, having them focus more on the positive aspects of what's going on versus the negative. Just trying to do whatever we can to keep them engaged and building upon those leadership qualities.
Now, I did an interview with a young lady named Bernice last week, and she mentioned, she's a high school student, she's a high school senior. She mentioned that some of her classmates and some of her peers are not exactly taking the COVID issue as seriously as possible. What steps are UCAN doing? What steps are you guys taking to educate your students about the scariness of COVID, like taking it more seriously, not going out to the park and go play, like Lori said, and what kind of educational tools are you utilizing to educate them about this health crisis and how and the impact it's having on their communities?
So we are doing a lot. The first and foremost thing, you have to understand why they're not so worried about the COVID-19 and having them express that to you. Just listening to the youth a lot of times that they want to be heard and they feel like people don't hear them. So when you talk to the youth, you recognize that they live in a trauma-filled environment on a daily basis. So when you hear about shootings, when you hear about car accidents, all of these different things that goes on in the neighborhood, drug abuse, alcoholism, COVID doesn't seem that scary, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is something I deal with daily. Like the COVID-19 doesn't seem as scary. So you have to educate them on what COVID-19 is and utilizing whatever they can get their hands on. So a lot of YouTube videos, articles that we can see in, and just having open conversations about what it is, how it affects the body, how it spreads, things of that nature. The youth are very smart. So once they fully understand what it is, they put in the proper precautions. And then for those who are more stubborn and want to be outside more, we actually have staff that are in the neighborhoods, in the communities, breaking up large gatherings, explaining to young people on site what's the risk that's going on, and just encouraging them to get back in the house and do other things.
That's amazing. Like I said, UCAN is a phenomenal organization. Chicago's blessed to have you. It's all everywhere that UCAN is blessed to have you guys there. And that's a very hands-on and direct approach to helping our youth understand like the gravity of the situation, you know. And you're right, like them being in those trauma-filled communities, they're more resilient than people maybe not in those communities, but it also kind of has a callousness that's built up that says like, this isn't that serious. This is not a direct threat to me, you know, especially something you can't see. So definitely, there's definitely a good strategy to help with that situation. Following up with that question, we're going to talk to Tamara right now from Chicago Scholars. So many of your students left jobs, student government, and cultural organization leadership positions when they left campus. What steps are you taking to continue to develop their skills, their leadership skills, while they are away from campus? So, like, I'll repeat the question. So, this basically, your students left jobs and leadership positions on campus. Like, how are you continuing that development? You know, like now that they're back home in Chicago or wherever they are, even them being back home on campus. But they don't have those structures in place to keep them engaged.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our career and leadership development team, led by my colleague Jeff Beckham, is constantly working with our college scholars on how to prepare for landing summer internships and jobs once they graduate. And so just last night, we actually hosted a job search webinar where we were able to share resources with our scholars on the top 70 companies that are hiring for remote positions during the pandemic. And so we're always trying to find ways to make sure we're keeping our scholars engaged, keeping them informed about what they could be working on right now to help them with their leadership and career development skills. We also have summer programming that we do with our scholars, for those scholars who are going off to college, as well as our current college scholars. So we do 2 workshops. We do one in May and one in June. So our upcoming May workshop, we're going to focus a portion of that on mental health, right? So I think that's one area where we do need to pay specific attention to, because this is not just impacting our scholars academically and financially, it's also impacting them emotionally, right? And so we have to make sure that they are taking the time to care for their social emotional development and well-being. So that's something that we will discuss with them in our May workshop. We're also wanting them to figure out ways that they can be advocates for themselves during this time, and then also how are they able to utilize leadership skills during a time of crisis. And so that's one of the areas that we want to focus on in our May workshop as well, to make sure that we continue to encourage them to develop those leadership skills. We also have a workshop that we do that's called the Empowered Leader Experience, and that's led by my colleague Kassan Brunt. He just piloted that program for our scholars this past January, and it was a huge success. We got a lot of great feedback from our scholars, and we are looking to build upon and expand that workshop further. And that's, like I said, for the current college scholars to continue to develop their leadership skills, and then also to put those skills in practice, right? So in January, obviously, was in person because that was all pre-COVID-19. And so they were able to engage with each other and practice those skills, practice interviewing skills. So what is it like to be in front of a potential employer, anticipating the questions that you're going to receive? You know, practice the STAR method. You know, how do you successfully answer interview questions? Once you land that job, how do you show up? You know, how are you expected to show up in those spaces once you are in your career path? So we're working on all of those things with our scholars, helping them build and continue to develop those skills now while they're in limbo, trying to figure out what is going to happen next after this COVID-19 situation has passed. One thing that I actually want to go back to, something that Solomon said that I think was really important and really critical, is we're in a moment now, right, to either go into survival mode or we can go into innovation mode. And one of the things that he said was that this is really a time for us to throttle up and not throttle down. And I really love that, because I feel like the organizations who are rising to the occasion and figuring out how to innovate in this space and how to come out of this operating differently and operating in a more effective way are really the ones that are gonna thrive and be able to take, you know, our organizations to the next level. And so we're also instilling in our scholars to think that way as well. Yes, we are trying to survive and get through everything that's happening, but this is really a moment for us to be innovative and to think about the opportunities that are being presented as a result of what's going on. So that's something that we also try to stress with our scholars as we continue to build their leadership development skills.
That's excellent, and that's such an important thing that Solomon said, and highlights like the purpose of this town hall, because as each of our organizations are throttling up and we are innovating, like since we got together right now, we have the guests watching us, we have the panelists listening to each other. We're able to take bits and pieces of what other people are doing, and we're going to be able to manifest that within our own organizations, and then we'll be able to contact each other to get follow-up data about how to implement these systems in our own organizations. And one thing that I've heard a lot of, I heard from Chase and Michelle, and definitely I heard from you, Tamara, is workshops, like having these engaging interactions with our youth in a way that builds them up, not just supporting them, but building them. And a big thing I want to focus on for myself personally and for Pursue Scholars is to build during this time. And like you said, like Solomon said, throttle up, build, like continue to innovate, like utilize this time to grow, you know? So thank you very much. And one other thing I want to mention is that mental health is definitely going to be a big deal for all of our organizations coming out of this, from CPS to Big Brother Big Sister to UCAN to Chicago Scholars and to us. And we're actually trying to develop a mental health program ourselves. We've been in the talks for that for basically since I came on board a few months ago. And it's and especially now with these kids at home, stuck at home, like there's so much trauma involved with the situations of being stuck at home for another 30 days on top of what they've already done. So utilizing our tools collectively and individually to support our youth's mental health is going to be so crucial when we come out of this and going forward into the future. So thank you very much, Tamara. I appreciate your answer. So one last reminder. So I'm on the last question for Solomon. And then we'll be going into the Q&A. We're a little bit early, so we have plenty of time to to answer all your questions. If you have any questions at all from what you've heard during this panel discussion, please submit them in the chat feature. It'll go to April, and she'll send the ones to me that she wants me to answer. So please take your time and ask some questions. So the panel will be here for at least another half an hour. We'll answer all the questions you want to, from CPS to Big Brother Big Sister to UCAN to Chicago Scholars to Pursue Scholars. Like, ask questions about what we're providing to the community and what additional answers you want to have answered. So, okay. Chase, did you mean to put your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask something. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking with the mental health piece, we also have to recognize that school was a huge escape for a lot of youth who didn't have very good home situations, and now they're stuck in those situations. So it's definitely going to be important after all of this is over to get those mental health services to those young people.
Exactly, and UCAN will be on the forefront of doing that. So if any of the other organizations here and any of the guests who are here, make sure if you have any questions about mental health programming, you get in contact with us, and we can get you in contact with Chase, and I'm sure UCAN will be able to help you through solving some of those mental health support questions going forward, coming still with the rest of this crisis and coming out of the crisis additionally. So thank you, Chase. Yeah, mental health is a big deal, and it's something that it's been growing in this country, and we've been more people talking about it, especially in Black and Brown communities. But we still have a long way to go. So this crisis is I hope doesn't show the disparity in mental health the same way it did with physical health. I'm hoping that it's not the case, but we have to be prepared to do what we have to do to support our clients. So our last question, this goes to Solomon. So it is a unique time in our country, and youth-centered nonprofits have to adjust to continue to serve their clients. As a Christian-based leadership nonprofit, what specific strategies are you using to build your students' spiritual, social, and financial leadership for their families, classmates, and friends?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the whole mental health piece that everyone is commenting on. Absolutely, 100%. One of the things I love about the Christian faith and the Christian tradition, particularly in the communities that we serve, they're just so full of faith. Black and brown communities here in the city of Chicago. What I love in the tradition is that it has such rich content and vocabulary present in scripture around loss and mourning. And that in regards to mental health, lament and mourning is such a necessary process in processing our grief well. I think of the story of Jesus when he raises Lazarus from the dead, right? We have the shortest verse in the Bible there. Jesus wept. And like, why is he crying? If he's about to raise Lazarus from the dead, it's because he's acknowledging that grief is essential, even in the midst of hope and processing well. And so that's just such an example, I think, for our students, that just want them to acknowledge that, to take time. And so our seniors are mourning not being in school right now with their friends. They're mourning, again, like Chase was saying, a loss of a safe space. Some of them are the loss of going to prom, graduation, different things like that. College seniors mourning the loss of friendships that they weren't able to bring to a close as they graduated from college. And so I think one of the most important things we do is model lamentation well, to model just mourning this and acknowledging that with the students. Just talking to you, Adrian, earlier, just about processing these things well, and just sitting and being like, man, that sucks. This sucks, And I think that we are all working so hard to try to innovate and pivot, and it's so important to do that, as you were saying, Tamara. But also even balancing all of that out with stillness and mindfulness around the loss of particular things. And even talking with some of my scholars who have actually lost multiple people, upwards of 6 to 7 people to COVID, and not just rushing on with college readiness training but just taking time to sit with them and through that time. Something that we try to do within our organization. Socially, I think it's just pointing our scholars to the need for community. I think during this time, that's such a blurry thing, particularly in presence and not being able to be physically present with people. It's been encouraging to see scholars like Talik Taylor and Ranisha Jackson, the Taylor class of 2024, connecting with the Taylor class 2024 over Zoom. So there's an upwards of 30, 40 students on that Zoom call, and they're building with each other before they even get to their college campuses. And so just to see students take control of that, to see their need for community and connecting with people and not isolating themselves. And so trying to push that as well during our college readiness trainings. And financially, we've been really, really blessed to partner with Northwestern Mutual, and they came and did a financial literacy workshop for our college readiness training for our students recently over Zoom. We were able to touch on things like budgeting and different things like that, but also stewardship in the fact that, we work hard to work our jobs and to get income and different things like that, but also that's a gift. We can work as hard as we can, but we're also looking to see that as a gift that we are using to serve other people, and in that foster generosity. Again, a way to model throttling up in our leadership during this time is not just thinking about survival mode and getting for ourselves, but looking to give out to others freely and willingly. And so those are just some of the ways we've been trying to model that sort of leadership and instill some of those things in our leaders.
Excellent.
I just wanted to add quickly that the part about mourning, at least the high school seniors, and let's not forget about the college seniors as well, who are preparing for graduation and they're not able to walk across that stage. Many of them, particularly for the scholars that we serve as Chicago scholars, they're first generation students. And so just what this moment means for them and their families, their families were anticipating being able to see them walk across that stage. And so it's certainly a mourning period for both our high school and our college scholars. But I did want to at least let everyone know that my colleague, Derek Fleming Jr., is actually in the process of planning some sort of virtual celebration for the high school class of 2020. And so if there are any, participants on the call who are interested in being involved in that effort, to please reach out to me. I can put you in contact with him. But he is planning a celebration to make sure that we honor and we recognize all of the hard work that our high school seniors have done for their entire high school career, and make sure that they at least have that moment, because not only are they losing out on that, they're losing out on prom and senior class trips and dances, all of those things. So we're really trying to, again, think innovatively and try to figure out ways to still support them, honor and recognize them in this moment, even though we're still having to shelter in place.
So good. Absolutely. I would love have more further dialogue with each and every one of you about ideas that surround that sort of celebration of our high school students and even college students, and how we can collaborate together to highlight them and to make this year special despite everything. Absolutely. I think that's so wonderful, Tamara. That's great.
That's excellent, Tamara. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. What I've noticed in all the questions that have been answered is that while Pursue Scholars' mission is holistic support spiritually, socially, and financially, a lot of the other organizations here all incorporate those same tenets that we have. We all share a common theme. And if this panel has shown nothing else, it has shown that we are all attacking this disease, this virus, in different ways, but we're all attacking it together, and we're all attacking it in creative ways that there are so many overlapping parallels between how we're addressing this issue. And being able to have all of these major organizations come together to put our heads together to talk about these things is a beautiful moment in my life. And definitely, I hope that the Chicago community appreciates the fact that we can get together and collaborate and share some of the things we're doing, not in a way like, oh, this is my idea, I want to share it. It's like, no, let's put these ideas that we're doing out in the community so it can benefit our clients, benefit our students, and benefit the next generation that's coming after us. So once again, I want to thank everybody for their amazing answers. We're going to be moving into the Q&A. Let me see how many questions we have. So we actually ended right on time, which is amazing. I'm so happy about that. You don't understand. I was like, oh, where are we going to finish? So we finished a minute after where I wanted. So right now we have 6 questions. So we'll get through these and then we'll wrap up. If anybody has any additional ones, you have time to get them in. But we're gonna ask these questions, and then for the panelists, go ahead. Whoever wants to answer, just go ahead and answer. And then we all know how Zoom works nowadays. So whoever's the first one to get in, starts it, and then we can just kind of piggyback off each other until we're done answering. So question number 1 is, do organizations have needs for volunteers right now? If so, how are you training them and getting them involved? So anybody can go ahead with that.
I can start. So Chicago Scholars absolutely has a need for volunteers right now. We recruit mentors year round, and as already been stated on this call, mentorship is critical right now for many of our scholars. That's what's keeping them engaged. That's what's keeping them motivated to want to continue to persist, to make that transition to and back to their respective campuses. And so if you're interested in being a mentor, or if you just want to get the word out about what we're doing, I definitely encourage you to sign up to be a mentor, because we are definitely looking for more of those for our scholars.
Anybody else? I know definitely you can, and Big Brother, Big Sister use volunteers. I'm not sure if you all are recruiting right now, but if you guys have anything you want to add to that, let us know.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, so the recruitment process right now is it's definitely people are a little weary at the moment, but we are still accepting volunteers. We do package delivery, so we box and deliver groceries to foster homes. That's a part of UCAN. So we definitely need help with that. It's taking away staff from being at the actual sites with the young people, like our residential or transitional living programs, to go out and drop off lunches and groceries. So again, we definitely need help with that. Anyone who's looking to be involved, we have on our website, ucanchicago.org, an area where you can go on and actually volunteer in different capacities. And I guarantee you people will get back to you as soon as possible during this time.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
but
Michelle.
I just wanted to add as well that we are also still recruiting. So we do like virtual sessions, whether it's at like our workplaces or anywhere else. We're still doing virtual like recruitment sessions. We're having those, during this time too. I still have my mentors, referring their friends too, because they see all the good things that we're doing even during this time. So we still have that. And then we also have, we have like these in virtual meeting sessions. So we usually have like the in-person, like here's your mentor, like this is what you guys have in common. This is what you can look forward to, but we're having those work virtually as well. So we're able to still recruit, we're still able to have volunteers, and they're still able to meet their littles as well.
Excellent. Adrian or Solomon, you guys want to add into that?
From our end at CPS, volunteers right now are a little bit tricky, just because so many of the services that we're providing, at least in person right now, are direct services. So physically giving devices, physically giving lunches. And so right now we haven't clearly identified a need for volunteers that want to support. We have, however, there have been organizations and partners. For example, UChicago reached out, our partners there, and said, hey, we've got masks, we've got gloves. We want to be able to support the South Side right now in particular. And so helping them kind of figure out how to get those items donated and placed, so that we could support our frontline workers. And really, we've been pointing folks, those that are interested in supporting either with donations or with services, pointing them towards the Children's First Fund, which is CPS's fiscal kind of like nonprofit. And so things going through CFF, and folks that have devices or things that they want to donate can help get funneled through there.
Thank you very much. Solomon, you want to continue with that? Like anything with Act 6 need volunteers for?
Absolutely. So our newly selected cadre to Taylor University, every year we try to pair them up with a remote mentor through our Pursue Guides program. And so we need at least 8. Our new Daniel Scholars through our Daniel Scholarship. We'll need guides as well. And I'm not sure how many scholars we're bringing on this year. We'll need at least 8. And so volunteers to do the virtual mentorship for our incoming freshmen. It will be so key for us to have. So you can definitely, if you want to get in touch with me or David, we can point you to the direction of our Daniel Scholars coordinator, who takes care of the Pursue Guides program.
Excellent. I'm so happy that because people, even in times of tragedy, people still want to give back. Whether it's with their time or with their money or with goods, people are always trying to like get that feeling in their mind that's like of being able to support those in need. So I think having these opportunities is important, and then sharing them with the greater community is also important as well. So the next question is, does anyone have a story/example of how you have seen a young person step up as an emerging leader in this season? Everybody's thinking. Yeah, anybody? You have any stories about how has an emerging leader stepped up to uniquely address this situation? Adrian, you want to go?
Yeah, so there was a really heartfelt news article that I saw late last week of a student on the South Side, SPS student on the South Side that has knitted over 400 masks to deliver. And I think that it's a way for a youth seeing the need in his community, and doing something that like I don't have the patience to knit that many things, right? But really like saw the need, took on a different skill set that he probably didn't have prior to COVID, to really support and uplift his community. So for me, I think things like that really are like, if a student can do that, like, then I'm not going to complain about the 13-hour workday. I'm just going to, roll up my sleeves and keep on grinding. So
yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely. That was a beautiful story. I saw that too. I heard it out on the news. Anybody else have any stories from any students you've heard in the news, or any of your personal clients?
I have thousands of stories about how young people have stepped up and completely blew my mind. Um, I had a young man who I was working with in Project Visible Man, which is our male mentoring program. I worked with him for about 3 years. When he was in high school, he's a senior now, preparing for college and work after. We have our leadership development program that I had mentioned earlier, DFLN, and we were looking at, young people that we can get involved. It's a piloted program right now because we were doing it virtually for the first time, so we didn't know how it was going to work. And we were trying to get like 13 youth or so to be a part of it, and they would get a stipend. So we were reaching out to people to see like how many young people would be interested in doing it. And we asked Angelo, and he was like, "Oh, I have a few people that I know need to be a part of this." So we were like, "Okay, send us a couple names." We were thinking he's gonna send us about like 2 or 3 names or something like that. He had 12 people sign up for the group. Had them send us all of their information that we needed. Had them be a part of other programs that we were running, and just really like took it upon himself to get people that he knew a part of this program, and a few of them are out of state.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's been going great.
Yeah, definitely. That's an amazing story. It shows that peer leadership, which is what we're all trying to instill in our students, for sure.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any stories they want to share?
Yeah, I think of one of our scholars, Emmanuel Terrell at Taylor. He's actually just elected student body president, so huge, very, very proud of him there. But before the crisis really ramped up, but the students were evacuating campus. Me and executive director Pursue were there helping students pack and leave campus there in Upland, Indiana. But Manny actually decided to stay. Instead of coming home and being with family, he decided to stay to help the international students who were on campus, because many of them couldn't go back to their home countries for various different reasons during that time. And just to see him step up there and choose to even, put himself potentially in harm's way on campus to support the international students at Taylor, while everyone else was going home, was just it blew me away as I just thought about that. I'm like, man, that's really self-sacrificial in doing that. So we're super proud of him and super proud to work along scholars just like him. And so, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's an amazing story. And I remember that. I remember when you guys took that trip, but for Manny not to come home to support the international students is amazing. It's definitely a testimony to his character. Anybody else?
I have a couple of quick stories of scholars. One story is I have a scholar who is at Denison University, and she's stepping up more within her family. So she has responsibilities for younger siblings. So she's essentially taken on the teacher, tutor role for all of her younger siblings, and also providing food for her family. So she's doing all the grocery shopping and making sure that her family is taken care of. We also have another scholar at Oberlin who's in a similar situation. Both parents have lost their jobs due to COVID-19. And so he's been able to secure work at Walgreens. And essentially he and his older brother are the breadwinners for their family now. And so although he is still trying to, successfully make that transition to virtual learning, and he's still trying to keep up with his course load, he's also essentially providing for his family right now. And so, while he's not necessarily leading scholars on his campus, he is that leader now for his own family, which I think is equally important.
That's excellent. Yeah, Solomon.
That's a virtual hand clap for.
Hand clap. Okay, yeah. Because I only have a few little things on my screen because I have it halfway, so I saw your little hand come up. Okay, excellent. Michelle, do you have any stories, or should we just move on?
Kind of just the same. My littles, I reach out to them. Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of them because they're at work, so they're also in charge of their family, and they're also taking care of their younger siblings, all while still, trying to finish off their senior year. So yeah, pretty much kind of just piggyback off of what she had said. So it's same thing. They're rising to the occasion.
Excellent, excellent. That was definitely heartwarming to hear all these different students stepping up. And we couldn't ask for anything more, and it definitely bucks back against the narrative that these young people aren't taking it as seriously as they should, or that they're not stepping up, but they actually are. And those kind of stories show like these young people are the real deal when it comes to like being emerging leaders, definitely. So I'm gonna pick number 3, and then I'll try to sift through the last few as you guys are answering to see what's the best question to ask for our last question. So it'll just be 2 more questions. This question says, Chase gave a multitude of ways to reach out to students. What is the best path to start reaching out to students, especially if you are kind of starting from ground zero? So Chase, you could answer that first, and we can all kind of like chime in about what's the best way to reach out to students. Like to have a personal impact. Is it just through volunteering? Is that the best option? Like, what do you guys think?
So I'm big on having a personal relationship with the young people.
Mm-hmm.
Before you start like invading their social medias and things of that nature. So I think it's very important that if you can get an opportunity to volunteer and get to meet the young people and communicate with them, and they see you helping before you start reaching out to them, that's great. We also recognize like that's not always the case. So you kind of got to use like whatever method they feel most comfortable with, whether it's a text message or a phone call or social media, whatever it is. It's just it kind of varies, but I believe the best way is to be able to volunteer and get to interact with them face to face if you can.
Excellent. Anybody else have go ahead?
Can I add to that just briefly? Yeah, I think one of the things that we can think about organizations is being that bridge, right? Through, and how we pivot and innovate a little bit about if people don't have the relationship with students, but they have a relationship with our organizations, not just us, but other organizations, thinking about how can they be that bridge to help support students through having the relational capital already built with them through the organization. And so, but yeah, so I guess that is to say all the individuals and the panelists that have said that they need volunteers for mentors and different things like that. I think that's a perfect way to initiate that process.
Excellent. Anybody else want to expound upon those answers? Okay, so we may have time for for 2 more questions. I'm going to ask this question. This question, I guarantee you all will be answering because this impacts all of us. It's a question for Chase, but I'm going to restructure it to be a question for all of us. How are your organizations supporting staff during this time? We've been talking about how the organizations are supporting the students, but the people who are helping the students also have mental health. They also have physical health issues. How is your greater organizational structure supporting the individual staff members through this time?
I'll go first since it was originally for me. So we are doing as much as we can. We have what we call ERGs at UCAN, which are employee resource groups. I'm the co-chair for BM360, which is a resource group for all of the Black men that work at UCAN. So we do monthly meetings and email check-ins, just temperature gauges to see where people's heads are at, what they're dealing with, helping them with stress levels, just sharing information, laughing, joking, doing those things those little things that kind of take away from the hardships of what's going on right now. Also, for those staff who have to go into the office and deal with the young people directly, face to face, like the residential areas and the TLPs, we have been catering lunch for them and the youth at all of those sites, and just doing as much as we can to let the staff know that we appreciate them and that we're here for them.
Excellent. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I can go next. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on, and our CEO, Dominique Jordan Turner, is really big on putting people first. And so that has been our creed, you know, of making sure that we are taking care of each other, that we are caring for each other, which is one of our key uh, guiding principles, you know, of our organization. And so we have been able to take mental health days. I mean, that's something that is really critical. You know, we can be somewhat overwhelmed sometimes with the type of work that we do. We are, you know, providing direct service for our scholars who are experiencing some pretty tragic and some pretty traumatic experiences right now. And so, you know, sometimes it's hard not to take on that burden of what our scholars are going through. And so, you know, we're allowed to take mental health days as a result of that. We have a culture now where everybody is working from home now. So let me just say that, you know, we're all very privileged and have been able to work from home. And many of us have families, and we have a work culture where, you know, we may have, you know, like you said earlier on, Dave, we might have kids running through the background of our virtual meetings, or, you know, we might have to stop and take breaks to care for our families. But our culture is such that we have a very welcoming environment for that. Many times I'm on work calls, you know, I'm in meetings and I have to feed my 5-month-old son. So the fact that, you know, everybody is understanding of that and, you know, accepting of, you know, just the situation that we all find ourselves in is very difficult to care for a family and be fully present at work at the same time. So we're just making sure that we're checking in for each other. We also believe in not suffering in silence. And so if there is a situation where one of our colleagues is just not feeling well, or you know, just needing some time to take for themselves, you know, we're understanding of that, and we encourage each other to do that, and we support each other in the work that we still have to get done. And so just that caring for each other has been really critical for us in helping us to, you know, be able to take care of ourselves mentally, but also be able to continue with all of the work that we have to get done, because we also still have to show up and be present for our scholars. So we do have a work culture of that I think has been effective so far.
Excellent. I love that. And you know, and while I have not been blessed with kids yet, I do know that, like, our organization, which I'm sure someone will get into, but like I know a lot of organizations are being progressive when it comes to dealing with having to deal with families at home while working from home, because it's a different adjustment because all the kids are out of school. So, you know, there has to be an opportunity to be able to support your family while being able to support your job. So that's excellent that Chicago Scholars does that. Anybody else want to chime in?
I'll go ahead and chime in, just because Tamara did mention the work culture. And so I think it's really important to have had that from before. So at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we, you know, consult each other, we talk to each other, you know, we talk to each other about an activity that we did. And so, you know, or we even like work it out together at the office, like, okay, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Let's play it out and see how it goes. So I feel like we're still carrying that on even during this crisis. We're still carrying that on. We're still in contact with one another. So we're like, okay, how did that work out for you? How did that activity, the virtual scavenger hunt, work out for you? Or I'm kind of stuck with just 3 questions on the virtual scavenger hunt. Like, can you think of something else? And so we kind of just collaborate with one another. And, you know, because we had that work culture from before, we kind of just still carried it on, and we're still checking in on one another. And so I think that that's pretty important to have had that from the beginning and to kind of just continue it, even though we're not physically seeing each other at the office.
Definitely. And I experienced that too. Solomon, who's on this call with us, he has prayed over me several times. And every single time he prays over me, I swear this guy must have a direct line to God, because every time he prays for me, it always manifests. So having that emotional support from your coworkers is so vital. Anybody else would like to go?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo so much of what Tamara and Michelle have said as part of the Pursue Scholars work culture. We're a small organization, and so the family feel is real. And so I'm just grateful for the leadership of Kevin Gwynn, our executive director, really, you know, him living on the west side of Chicago for decades now, and really embodying with his life, loving his neighbor. And that's really translated to him creating a culture, and my other coworkers creating a culture of care for one another. And staff meetings, you know, definitely taking care of business and different things like that. But also taking Fridays in particular to be silly, to be silly, to talk about places we've traveled to, as we did today, telling our life stories, through different word exercises and different things like that, just giving us a different cognitive approach to a mindfulness and awareness of ourselves, and so I'm grateful that he took the time to think through that and lead us in that way. Let's look like, gift baskets, did different things just to encourage us and to let him know, he lets us know how much he appreciates us, and being able to, just hear that, from your boss. Not everyone has that, and just grateful to have that blessing. And just even highlighting, my dear wife, who takes care of our kids, and the understanding that organizations have to, again, allow us to be parents as well in this time as we work hard to connect with our scholars. And so, much of the same. But shout out to my teams, in the midst of this. Thank you.
Yep, shout out to the team, definitely. Let's have Adrian finish this question off, and then we'll kind of close it up. So go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, so I think what folks already said, definitely resonating. So CPS is the second largest employer in the city of Chicago, second to the federal government. And so, the kind of core values that we've been leading from a district level have been around flexibility, grace, and empathy. It's the approach that we took for remote learning and our teachers that are re-entering the teaching force and kind of getting themselves adjusted to this. Is the approach that I've taken with my team directly in doing engagement work and making sure that they're taking care of themselves and giving themselves the space to process, to grieve, or to manage their time however they I've got a daughter, she's 2 years old. Thankfully, like my wife right now has some downtime where she was able to walk away, but that is not the case every day, right? Like normally, if I'm on a call for more than an hour, the folks on the call will know that she is here. So that's one, right? It's grace, flexibility, and empathy are kind of our leading principles right now. And then for frontline staff that are showing up, we worked with our union partners for essential staff to receive a premium on their pay. So our custodians, our lunchroom workers, those who are showing up on the front lines are getting time and a half for the hours that they work, because we understand the sacrifice that they're making and the commitment. And without them, they are essential employees, and we need them for our success, and also to distribute essential items to our students and their families. And then for our administrators, as well, they're not getting time and a half because that would be financially irresponsible. But they get a slight premium to their pay as well to ensure that their doors are open for business and that families can come and access devices. So it's been not only from a financial perspective and myself, right? I think everyone on this call, the district is prioritized. There have been no layoffs. There's been no one that's folks are able to work remote, and we're figuring this out as we go. But grateful for the leadership, staff, and our HR team that I think has done a great job at making sure that people feel supported during this time.
Excellent. So the time has come, but I have a question for the panelists. So do you all mind staying an extra 5 to 10 minutes to answer more of these questions? Because there's a few left. So if you guys have to leave.
I have a hard stop at 1:30.
Okay, so Adrian's got to go. Can anybody else stay, or do we just going to wrap it up?
I'm good for another 10.
I'd say potentially wrap it up.
Okay, all right, I'll wrap it up. So thank you all for your answers. And I will send these questions out to the panelists, and if they have any desire to answer the questions, and then we'll send it out. We'll send out a follow-up email with the survey and everything, and then I'll have the panelists answer questions before we send out that follow-up email next week, probably next Monday or Tuesday, and so they'll have a chance to answer the rest of today, and then Monday, and then we'll send it out on Tuesday to get a follow-up on some of these questions, and we didn't get a chance to get to all of them. So I'm definitely going to close it up right now. Let's get to my little script real quick. So we are wrapping up this amazing town hall discussion. I really appreciate you all taking your time out of your day to come here and help fuel the fire to making Chicago a better place, not just for our students, not just for our young adults, but for, like we said, like the people, the staff members, the essential workers who are the parents of our students. Just being there as a community is important at this time. So I want to ask all the panelists to let us know where we can find your organization online and what's the best way to support you at this time. So I'll go through everybody in order, and then you guys, like I said, let me know where we can find your organization online, your social media handles, your websites, and also the best way to support you during this time. So we will start with Michelle. Michelle, go ahead.
Volunteer, you can, was I muted?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
you're
sorry.
muted. Here now.
All right, so the best way to support Big Brothers Big Sisters is obviously to volunteer, but you can also donate. The website is bbbschgo.org. I know that's a lot of B's, but that's 3 B's and an S, and then CHGO.
Excellent, and this will be recorded, so people will be able to rewind it a few times to get it down. So next up is Tamara. Could you let us know where to find your organization and what's the best way to support you guys?
Yes, so you can find us at www.chicagoscholars.org, but we also have a dance party. It's called House Party 2 that we're doing today. We do a 35 under 35 celebration every year, and so we're honoring them. And we're just going to have a party. We're going to come together in community and have a good time. We're going to have a DJ. We're giving away a Peloton bike. So definitely, if you're free between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m. today, please stop by that party, and that is facebook.com/Chicago Scholars Foundation, which I believe is going to be posted in the chat box. And you can definitely volunteer as a mentor with us, and you can also donate. We have a emergency relief fund that we're providing for our scholars, so please support in that way.
Thank you, Tamara. Adrian, could you go next, please?
Yeah, so you all can find CPS at cps.edu. On there are various links. If you want to donate, I highly recommend you go to the Children's First Fund, and they will gladly point you in the right direction for any donations that you all may have. Excellent. I unfortunately have to jump, so it was good seeing you.
Yeah, Adrian, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Take care, okay? We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay, Chase, could you close this up? Or Chase and Solomon, we'll have Chase go, and then we'll have Solomon go next.
Absolutely. So you can find us at ucanchicago.org. That's UCAN, chicago.org. The best way to help us out is definitely to volunteer, but we also are accepting donations. All of the information you are looking for will be on that website.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So last but not least, again, like I said before, Solomon, could you let us know where to find information about Pursue?
Absolutely. PursueScholars.org. PursueScholars.org is the website. You can find us on Facebook as well. Facebook.com/PursueScholars, on Instagram at Pursue Scholars. Definitely the volunteer opportunity with Pursue Guides is definitely a thing we can do, as well as any donations. I would also like to suggest and ask that if you have the time to look at the scholar stories that Dave and April have been putting together, and if there's any of those stories that touch your heart that you want to share on your social media platforms, please do that. Yeah, some great stories about our scholars. So, yeah.
Excellent. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, you can email me directly at dchappell, so DCHAPPELL at pursuescholars.org. You can also email the organization at pursuescholars@gmail.com. And yeah, so I want to thank everybody once again for coming. Thank you all the guests for staying and observing us. Even if you popped in at the end or the beginning, I really appreciate you all the panelists taking the time to come and speak about this really important issue, which is supporting our youth, supporting our young adults through this crisis. So I want everybody to have a great day, be blessed, and everybody stay safe, okay?
Bye. Thank you.